What is up, and welcome to the newest edition of the Bet Chicago Sports Podcast. I am Shane Jackson, and it's Friday, which means I am joined, as always, with our Bears beat reporter, Sean Hammond. The thought process with this Friday show every week is to figure out how to bet the Bears game. This week happens to be with a pair of unexpected 2-1 teams in the Chicago Bears and the New York Giants in week 4. Out at the Giants MetLife Stadium. Sean, just let's get into it right from the jump. First off, figuring out how to bet this game, it's important to know who's available, who's not. Can you give us the rundown on the latest injury report as of Friday afternoon?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Shane. As always, looking at, I'll start with the Bears. The big news is David Montgomery is not going to play in this game. It's kind of been trending that way all week. He did not practice at all, so that wasn't a huge surprise to me. But that means Khalil Herbert is going to be the guy for the Bears running game. He's going to get that full load. He's going to be that featured back. Treston Ebner might be in there a little bit, but Herbert's definitely going to be the number one guy. Jalen Johnson, the cornerback, is going to miss his second game in a row with a quad injury. I thought the Bears secondary did fairly well without him last week. They were able to weather the storm, so to speak. And part of that is that they weren't facing the most fearsome of quarterbacks and Davis Mills for the Texans. And you look at Daniel Jones this week, it's kind of a similar situation. Similar playing styles in a lot of ways between those two guys and what they're able to do. And I'm not particularly worried about the Bears secondary just because they looked pretty good last week, even without Johnson. And then elsewhere, you look at the Giants and they're already without Sterling Shepard at receiver. And then Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney have been ruled out as well for this week. So that's 3 receivers for a receiving core that is, in a lot of ways, like the Bears, getting thin. And it's been thin and it's gotten thinner here this week.
Yeah, it's weird how just similar both these teams are in a lot of ways. They both want to lean on the run. They both given up a lot on the run, and they're both somehow 2-1 despite their kind of limitations passing wise. That said, Caesar Sportsbook, the official odds partner of Bet Chicago Sports, makes the Giants a 3-point favorite. We know home field advantage isn't worth a full 3, so that's saying essentially the Giants are about a point and a half better than the Bears on a neutral field. Remember, if you are new to sports betting and you want to sign up, scan the QR code there in the lower right corner and sign up and take advantage of their new user offer if you're watching this as the video version of this podcast at all. And if you're listening to the audio version, appreciate you. Just go somewhere on shawlocal.com/bet and there's a QR code or there's a code in every single article that gets you the same new user offer as well. Let's get into it. You mentioned right from the jump that David Montgomery ruled out, but Khalil Herbert obviously stepped up in his absence last weekend. What are the chances kind of replicating that performance for Herbert going into this matchup? Because right now his rushing yardage prop is 79.5 yards, which is a little bit lower than Saquon Barkley. So that seems like a way to attack this game if you believe Herbert can replicate what he did last weekend.
Yeah, I fully expect the Bears to be run heavy yet again. We've kind of seen that in every game so far this year, and I don't see why that's going to change. Some fans might be clamoring for Justin Fields to throw the football more, but I don't necessarily think that that's what the Bears are going to do. I mean, they've kind of showed a trend now where they're going to lean on that running game, and Khalil Herbert did such a nice job in the Week 3 win over the Texans that I don't think there's any reason to go away from that. I do expect him to get a lot of touches in this game and to really be pounding it. I think that 52-yard run coming out of halftime really helped that stat line. But even so, that was a really good stat line for a young running back. 157 yards in that game. I'm looking at that number and thinking that that's certainly an attainable number of rushing yards for Khalil Herbert in this game. The Bears have no reason to go away from him. And, I do want to point out one other injury thing that I forgot to mention. And it's not really even an injury thing, but the Bears kicker Cairo Santos has been out with a personal issue these last couple of days. And, Matt Eberflus wouldn't really say anything about it, wouldn't comment on if the Bears are putting together plan B options for their kicker situation, but they don't have another kicker either on the active roster or on the practice squad. So that's just another thing to sort of watch for as we get towards Sunday.
That's especially notable because kickers have been such a strength for these two offenses, right? It's been a bulk of their production is from the kicking game, so definitely worth noting there. Total right now for these two teams, as evidenced by the kicker comment, is that it's 39.5 points. Expecting another low-scoring game between these two teams, and it's hard to argue against that. Even though I made the case for it last week, it's tough to get there with both teams wanting to run the ball this week. I'm not sure I could get to the over. In fact, I would probably lean the under in that game. From a passing offense standpoint, just much has been made this week, I think, about Justin Fields and just how he has struggled against the blitz. Now he's going up against, defense coordinator Don Martindale of the Giants. He blitzes a lot. He came from the Ravens. Justin Fields actually saw him last year against the Ravens. Has there been much talk, in terms of the media availability about how they plan to mitigate that and just Justin Fields get more success and comfortability out of Justin Fields against pressure this Sunday?
Yeah, well, the thing I would expect from this Bears offense is to have some tight ends in there to help to keep the running back in there at times to help in pass protection, and that's kind of what we've seen from them, and I think that's going to be the philosophy moving forward. Certainly Justin has been pressured a lot, and he's a quarterback who not only this year, but also if you look at last year, I know it's a different offense, but he's allowed a lot of sacks in his career, in his 13 starts or whatever it is. So that's obviously a concern. But you also have to look at the Giants. They've only got 3 sacks on the season. Even if they are bringing those blitzes and trying to get to the quarterback, they haven't had a ton of success doing it yet. So certainly it's a concern, but I think you need to, if you're the Bears, just keep doing what you've been doing, and do whatever you can to keep Justin Fields clean, and certainly he can use his legs to get out of trouble if he needs to.
So if they do keep him clean, let's just hypothetically speaking here, and they're able to mitigate the pressure on Sunday. What are your expectations for this passing offense? It feels like maybe we gave them the benefit of the doubt for a couple weeks. They had the monsoon in week 1. The Packers are a good team in week 2, and then all of a sudden it still was an issue in week 3. So now it was kind of okay. Now we can panic, right? Now we can worry. So you going into week 4. What do you think? Because Fields' player props are incredibly low now. Passing yardage wise, he's down to 147 yards. So what are your expectations for what you see on the passing side of things this Sunday?
Yeah, Shane, those are good points. We've had some excuses those early weeks, and you chalk it up to small sample size, but we're 3 games in now, and it's still a small sample size, yes, but there's some obvious reasons for concern. This is the numbers that the passing game is putting up at this point is so low. It would, if this continues for a full season, it's going to be one of the lowest marks that we've seen in years. Nobody in the last 10 years has averaged fewer than 140 passing yards a game, and the Bears are nowhere near that at this point. So the way you could, the optimistic Bears fan will look at this and say the only way to go is up. They have to get better in this area, and I think they will. I don't think it can be this bad throughout the entire season. Justin is going to get some more comfortability with some of these receivers, some of these new guys outside. You want to see Darnell Mooney keep making an impact, but you also got to see Justin connect with some of these other guys, because it can't just be Darnell Mooney in that wide receiver room who's making a difference. Now you need to see him getting the ball in his hands more. That has to happen, and they did that a little bit last week. They had a couple of nice completions. They gave him some opportunities on some easy short throws. A couple of them worked, a couple of them didn't. But certainly you got to keep going to that well, because he's your number one guy. And same with Cole Kmet, the tight end, another guy who you got to keep throwing the football to. But all that said, I don't expect them to just come out here and start chucking the ball around the field. I think, we've seen through 3 weeks what this offense is, and while I think that they do want to be more efficient in their passing game, I don't necessarily think that they want to come out here and throw the ball more than they need to win a football game. They're still going to lean on that running game. We've heard that from Luke Getsy, and I don't see that changing this week, or really I don't necessarily foresee that changing a whole lot as the season goes on.
I mean, it's hard to say, hey, change what you're doing offensively when this team is 2-1. I mean, 2 wins in 3 weeks. When honestly, their over under win total was 6.5 entering the year. So it's hard to say, yeah, what you're doing is not the way football should be played in 2022. Change it up. And I understand maybe fans' frustration with just the lack of passing success, but again, like you mentioned, small sample size and maybe better days are ahead. Now, flipping to the other side of the ball, the Bears haven't done as well against the run, which I think some of it can be attributed to who they played, right? 49ers, obviously a run team in week one, then the Packers in week two as well. Obviously looked like Roquan Smith was a lot better in week three, and maybe that kind of gets things turning in the right direction. I mean, what are you expecting on that side of the ball, and maybe what you've talked with players and coaches about kind of this matchup against Saquon Barkley?
Well, yeah, Saquon Barkley is obviously a player that you're going to be concerned about. He's looked really good those first 3 games. After dealing with all those multiple injuries the last couple of years, missed most of 2020 with the ACL tear, and now though he's looking kind of like his old self. He's a guy who's going to get a lot of touches, and he has that potential to break free and have one of those really big plays on any of those touches. Anytime he's got the ball in his hands, you gotta wrap him up, or he can break something off, and that has to be a concern for Bears defense that has had some tackling issues here early on. That was a storyline that we've talked about in recent weeks. And you're right, the 49ers and the Packers, they run the football as well as any teams out there. I don't know that the Houston Texans, while they have Damian Pierce, who's a good young running back, I don't know that their offensive line is really what you're looking for at this point. They've got some kinks to work out there. I would be a little bit more afraid of Saquon Barkley, just because of we've seen what an elite running back like Aaron Jones can do against this Bears defense, and I just think that Saquon could have a really good game here, and they're going to lean on him because the Giants, much like the Bears, these offenses are very similar in that they've leaned heavily on those running games. They haven't, necessarily put their quarterbacks they're not trying to put their quarterbacks in dangerous positions throwing the football. They're trying to play it safe and lean on the defense and get that run game going.
That makes sense. And Barkley with his, I think, over under currently at Caesar Sportsbook is 80.5 rushing yards. So if you like Barkley to have a better day than that, I think maybe that is worth putting some money on. And even if you're a Bears fan, I mean, that's a little bit of a hedge just to see, Barkley's a good back, but they can still win even if he goes off a little bit, right? I think I've decided that and I'll get your score prediction. I'll see if it confirms what my best bet is. My best bet for this game, the one I've already placed, is under 21.5 points for the New York Giants at -120. I have a hard time believing this team's going to score more than 3 touchdowns. They can win the game, and I still think they're going to be at 21 or fewer. And so while I actually do think the Bears have a very legit shot of winning this game, and they can muck it up, make this ugly, and keep the Giants contained, I would say that this opens the door for either avenue happening, right? The win or loss, I think the Giants scoring more than 21 would be a shocker to me. So with that said, tell me what your kind of official score prediction is and how you see this game unfolding on Sunday. And let's see if I just wasted some money on this bet.
No, I don't think you wasted money at all. I mean, that's exactly what I'm kind of seeing. I think the Giants are going to win this game. I picked an ugly score, 13-10. I think it's going to be a little bit of an ugly game. It's supposed to be rainy in New York this weekend. And, both these teams want to keep the football on the ground. They want to use those rushing attacks like we've talked about. And, I think the big key for the Bears will be, can they clean up, some – Justin Fields is going to pick his spots. And we saw last week that there were a couple times on those interceptions where when he pulled the trigger, they needed to clean a few things up. Can they hit those play action passes and really take advantage of that? Because we know they're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball a lot. Can this offense take advantage of those opportunities when they can maybe catch the defense off guard? I don't know that we've necessarily seen that from them yet. We've seen it in spurts here and there, but I don't know how that's going to look if the Bears are trailing a touchdown in the fourth quarter. What's this offense going to look like? So I'm picking the Giants, but I really think this is a coin toss game. I think either of these teams could come out with the win here, and I do think it's going to be a bit of a low scoring, ugly matchup.
Yeah, 13-10 final, not the most visually appealing football game for fans, but it opens the door from a betting standpoint to just smash a lot of unders. So if you're like Sean and you believe that this is going to be an ugly game, there's a very good opportunity to make some money on the Bears Giants in week 4. Thank you so much, Sean Hammond, for joining us on this edition of the Bet Chicago Sports Podcast. This was a lot of fun, and I like having you on every Friday to help kind of get into the weeds of what is going on in the locker room over there. So thank you so much, Sean, and safe travels this weekend.
All right, Shane. Thanks for having me.
See ya. He is Sean Hammond. He's our Bears beat reporter. And again, he is great at what he does, covers the team in depth. And I like reading all his stuff, and especially the 10, 15 minutes that he gives us every single Friday to help us identify how to bet this game. This angle is a little bit different than normal. My camera stopped working, and I had to switch up positions here. So if you're a regular viewer of the show and wondering why I'm positioned the way I am with the backdrop here, that is the reason. But I will end this like I do every single Friday with how I am betting this weekend's slate of games. It was a tough week. I kind of mentioned this throughout the week in all my articles at shotlocal.com/bet, which can be found for free. All the free content there at Bet Chicago Sports. But it's tough week because there was 12 games with a spread of 3.5 or fewer. That included obviously the Thursday night football matchup between Cincinnati and Miami. And that was actually one of the games I gave out. Like I said, hey, bet the Bengals -3.5. It was a tough situational spot for the Dolphins. And then it was like, okay, what else is there? And so I only came up with 2 more sides that I ended up liking. So I did end up betting the Cleveland Browns against the Atlanta Falcons. On Wednesday's show, Tyler Shoemaker, who got into the projections and models and all that fun math nerdy stuff, it was a lot of fun. That was a great conversation. He actually likes the Falcons and thought that line was going to keep moving in Atlanta's favor, and eventually they would be favored. So that didn't make me feel as great, but obviously this is one of those situations where you have to trust your process. I think the Browns having 10 days to prepare. They have the best rushing attack in football. And I think the Falcons are the best of the bad teams, and I've certainly upgraded them a lot. But I still don't think they are on the same level as the Browns in terms of roster talent standpoint. I could be wrong. You never know what happens on a Sunday on the football field, but I'm going to take the Browns, and I took them at -1.5. I think you can get a better number at -1. I also took them on the money line. I just think they win this game and cover the number. And I think Jacoby Brissett has been better than expected, so I'm willing to trust this team on extended layoff and the way they can draw things up offensively. I just like backing that side in a week where it was tough to find a lot of plays. And then the other side, I'm going back to the Cardinals. I think I did this a couple weekends ago as well when they were here in Las Vegas. And the thought process is similar, right? This is another spot on the road where they're the underdog going against the Carolina Panthers. I took them +2. I took them on the money line. I think they win this game. Kyler Murray really in this offense has only showed signs of life for like one quarter this season so far. But this more has to do with the other end. Panthers have not done anything offensively. Baker Mayfield under pressure has been a disaster in his career. Cardinals, what they like to do is blitz. It didn't work against Patrick Mahomes in week 1 because anybody who blitzes Patrick Mahomes is really stupid. But the Cardinals can do that against Baker Mayfield and find success. And so I think it's an opportunity for them to keep Carolina off the board. And the offense, I trust enough to score enough points. So I'm taking the Cardinals +2, taking the Cardinals on the money line, and I'm taking the Panthers under their team total, which I believe was also 21.5 as well. As for the Bears game, I went 3-0 on my Bears-Texans bets last weekend. You can get all my Bears bets in the newsletter. I give them out on Sunday at the Bets newsletter. And I will probably have more than one bet, but right now I've only placed one bet, and that is under on the team total for the Giants. Again, that is under 21.5 points, -120. It's a lot of what Sean was talking about. I expect this game to be pretty ugly. Both teams leaning on the rushing attack, and it's going to move pretty quickly. And I think the Bears have a legit shot of winning. I think they could win this game on Sunday. But even if the Giants do, I would be surprised if they are scoring more than 21 points. So as my only bet for the Bears Giants so far, I'll take under 21.5 points scored by the Giants on Sunday. And I will probably end up playing a couple more other things like props, a touchdown score, all that stuff. But again, you'll have to get the Sunday newsletter, the Bets newsletter, to see all those bets. And I'll have them on the website as well at Bet Chicago Sports, which can be found at shawlocal.com/bet. That's going to do it for this edition of the Bet Chicago Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for Sean Hammond for joining us. I'll be back on Monday to recap what happened in week 4 and to see if I made any money. So for Sean Hammond, I'm Shane Jackson. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.